New dimensions in warfare. The conquest of the air led to conflict in the skies during the time of wars between nations. Wilbur and Orville Wright, creators of the aeroplane, genuinely thought that their invention would bring an end to war. No one, they argued, would dare risk fighting a nation that owned such a dreadful weapon. But with the arrival of powered aircraft, warfare all over the world entered a new and more terrible dimension. As far back as 1670, an Italian priest, Francesco Lana, summed up the terrors that a flying machine would bring. "Where is the man," Lana asked, "who can fail to see that no city would be proof against sunrise? Iron weights could be hurled to wreck ships at sea, or they could be set on fire by fireballs and bombs. Nor ships alone, but houses, fortresses, and cities could thus be destroyed, with the certainty that the airship could come to no harm, as the missiles could be hunted from a vast height." For another century, Lana's grim prophecy remained untested. Men might dream of flight, but no one could work out how to achieve it. And suddenly, in 1783, the dream came true. Like the Wrights, the inventors who first took man into the air were brothers, two Frenchmen, Joseph and Etienne Montgolfier, who ran a paper-making business at Annonay, near Lyon. The Montgolfiers had been experimenting with balloons of paper and cotton, and in June 1783 they stunned the people of Annonay by sending a large hot air balloon 1,830 metres into the air. It travelled over 1.6 kilometres before coming down again. 5 months later, the Montgolfiers built their strongest balloon yet, and two Frenchmen, Pelletier de Rosier and the Marquis de Hollande, volunteered to go up in it. On the 21st of November, they set off from the Bois de Boulogne and were carried through the air over Paris to a safe landing 8 kilometres away. They were the first men ever to fly. The French army were quick to show their interest. In the long war that had followed the French Revolution, the French used balloonists to spy on what the enemy Austrians were doing. Later in 1849, the Austrian army took the idea one stage further and used balloons for dropping bombs on Venice. Venice survived unscathed, however, since most of the balloons were blown back over the Austrians. Accidents such as this forced the inventors to think about new ways to make flying more efficient. The first experiments with flying machines that, unlike balloons, were heavier than air were made in Britain by Sir George Cayley. He built man-carrying gliders but could not power them. In the American Civil War, both sides used unpowered balloons for spying. Among those who went up in them was a German called Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin. The Count then conceived the idea of placing a number of balloons within a streamlined framework which could be propelled and steered. On the 2nd of July 1900, the first Zeppelin airship made its initial flight, driven by the recently developed petrol engine. Zeppelin had presented Germany with a formidable weapon. In the United States, almost unnoticed, the Wright brothers started a revolution in flight, which had its consequences in warfare. The First World War, 1914 to 18, showed just how far-reaching that revolution was. Urged on by the looming threat of war, countries were producing aeroplanes that could fly at over 144 kilometres and climb to 4,500 metres. When war broke out at first, these aeroplanes were unarmed and could be used for reconnaissance, for which they were fitted with radio communications and cameras. Once, when two enemy pilots passed each other in mid-air, they just waved at each other and carried on flying. But the demands of war soon banished those friendly feelings. With pistols and rifles, the airmen began shooting their enemies out of the sky. When they began to use machine guns and the fighter plane was born. When it came a new kind of warrior, the ace fighter pilots like Germany's Freiherr von Richthofen, the Red Baron. These were the new heroes. The fighters had several jobs: to protect the scouts, to shield heavy bombers on their raids, to attack the ground troops, and of course to clear enemy aircraft out of the sky. In the dogfights that took place high above the ground, only the quickest and nimblest machines stood any chance of survival. Under this relentless pressure, stronger and faster aircraft were produced almost every week. The same thing happened with the bombers, which has to fly for very long distances. Aircraft ranges became longer. Other improvements, such as bubble cockpit covers, superchargers, and corrected bomb sights, made flying and fighting easier. Germany pioneered the cantilever wing without struts or braces. One invention that should have been developed and was neglected was the parachute. There was no way a pilot could save himself when in danger. By the time the war ended, the war had seen Francesco Lana's vision come true, but now the weapons of war could be put to peaceful use. Within a few months, the former bombers were carrying mail and passengers. Less than 20 years after the Wrights took off at Kitty Hawk, the age of public travel had arrived.